So this book was published in the Soviet Union in 1963. The book contains something like 77 games and fragments, mostly, not only full games. Obviously the analysis by Koblenz, that was Tal seconds and coach, have not stood up the test of time, in the sense that engines have refuted some of them. Yet it's a pleasant book that I found very cheap price, and so I got it for that reason. Now I want to show you game number 6 between Tal, that is white, and Pasman, that is black. It was played in 1953 in Riga, and it was the Latvian Championship. So this is a set called Shkolnik. No, I don't know if I pronounce it correct. Shkolnik. Okay. It's a kind of school student set. As you can see, the board has been object of endless battles from the scratches, and the set honestly is very nice. It's not damaged. So also if it is like nearly 60 years old. E4, C5, knight F3, D6, D4, C takes D4, knight takes D4, knight F6, knight C3, E6, and now there is F4. Here the comment, I think by Koblenz, because otherwise they put editor's note, is this active move was fashionable back then, but is now quite rare. So keep in mind, the game was played in 1953. If the book was written in 1960-61, obviously it was nearly 8-10 years later, right? So E5, knight F3, knight BD7, bishop D3, bishop E7, castle, castle, king H1, B5, good move because you want to develop this right at a certain point, and A3, queen C7, F takes C5, D takes C5, and now there is knight H4. Okay, so now you must think what is black going to play, right? Because the problem is the following. Here there is an outpost, right? And you want to take control of that outpost. So what would you play? There is an editor note that says that now the preferred move is knight b6 because it covers d5. No? And eventually he will put the knight on c4. So it also uses his own outpost. But in that time, Pasman played knight c5. And Tal continue with bishop g5, and here there is a comment which says, until now the game had followed theory. Tal played his fourth move quickly, the opening studies pay off. White has an open F file, his pieces are concentrated on the king side, and the strategic plan is clear. Attack the enemy king, right? So that's the strategic plan. Let's see what black does. Queen d8, knight f5, taking control of the outpost, but obviously black takes this knight because it's kind of important. And now white takes with the rook. So it doesn't take with a pawn, but with a rook. That's kind of important to understand. Knight fd7, bishop takes, queen takes, and finally white goes in the d5 outpost, queen d6, and queen g4. Starting a multi-move combination with a sacrifice of 2 pieces. This game brilliantly shows the young player's exceptional ability to create incredible combination complications. The difficulty of the combination lies in the fact that the following play is enforced. Okay, so it looks like it's not a combination then. Huh? White methodically attacks while being 2 pieces down. One of Tal's greatest strengths force manifested itself in this game. Even if his opponent gets counterplay, he rarely loses the initiative, finding more and more targets for attack. He attacks incessantly, creating one threat after the other. So, how does black continue here? He could have continued playing rook ac8, which means to activate this rook. Instead, he made a kind of committal move, that is g6. And now, what are you doing if you are white? What would you play? Try to take your clock, think for a few minutes, and decide what you will play, okay? So pause the video, obviously, that's what I'm telling you. White played rook a f1, f6, and of course there is h4. And here there is an editor note that says, as we shall see, had black played correctly, such a sharp continuation could have come back to hit white like a boomerang. So it seems that it was better to play this and go back. Just go back. Okay. So black plays king h8 and finally goes back, but rook 5 f3 is not the best one. It seems the computer says this is the right move for this position. Obviously this would go into a kind of passive defense, but obviously Tal wasn't really thinking about defense, right? So he goes on this f5, and of course white must have calculated this. E takes f5, queen takes d5. So just think for a second what would happen if it takes on f5. If it takes on f5, he plays bishop takes f5, attacking this, queen takes d5, but then there is the blow, that is bishop takes h7. So let me show it to you on the board if you weren't able to visualize it. Okay, so let's see what happens here. Takes, 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 and then boom, this move that should dismount black position. Why? Let's see why, right? What happens after this move? Because it's kind of interesting, yeah. So let's say plays this, plays this. What does he do now? I don't know, it could probably play something like this. I, I don't know if it's really working, but obviously, no, sorry. Because what happens is, if he plays this, and you say, take, you cannot really play this because of this, you know? So, I don't know, I think they should have continued with a couple of moves to show us why it was so an important move, that one. Okay, and now let's return back. So we were in this position. We have seen what happens if black plays g takes f5. In the game, black took on d5. So let's see what happens. F takes g6, rook takes f3, obviously g7 because it's an intermediate move, king g8, and now boom, very beautiful move, yeah. He must take, obviously, it takes back, and at this point the editor says there is a great move for black, which is queen e6, which prevent white from pushing the h-pawn. Instead, in the game, he played knight e4. So h5, obviously you want to consolidate this, knight df6, knight df6, queen g6, boom, king g8, h6, it seems it's a problem. Okay, white's combination ends here. To save the game, black needs to play just one correct move. This was probably Koblenz writing, Rook a7, and Koblenz says is the decisive mistakes. It was hard for black to foresee all the consequences he could have drawn with knight h7. And strangely, here it says that black is actually winning for probably the engine, and rook a7 is a good move, so it's not the wrong move. Not only, it seems that there is also rook d8 or rook c8 that are always winning for black. Let's see why eventually. So I don't know, here it gives a line, but obviously it doesn't make sense. Let's see what happens in the game instead. So after rook a7, there is white playing king h2. This quiet move begins a hidden maneuver, and now black plays rook e7, that for an editor move, editor note, says this is the losing move. Okay, this is the losing move. If black wanted to survive, he had to play this move, queen d2, and it gives a line, okay? But again, this seems computer generated, so again, sometimes it's easy that with a computer you find all the right moves, but are you able to find them at the board? Probably not, because some positions are really complicated, and for the computer are not complicated at all, but for us human they are. So how does white continue after rook e7? there is rook h3, obviously it's trying to push, right? Now knight h7, rook d3, queen a8, and of course a beautiful move by white that obviously shows the problem black is having. So I think you nearly saw it because I touched the piece. If you didn't, try to pause the video and see what you would play if you were white in this position. Okay, so white played queen takes e4. It's obvious, no? If you take here, it goes. And in fact, black takes. Rook d8, check. King f7. g8, queen, and check again. King f6. Rook d6. King f5. Queen g6, check. King f4. g3, check. King e3. And now there is rook d3, check. Rook takes d3, queen takes d3. And obviously queen takes d3. And black resigned. So why did black resign in this position? Well, mainly because with a queen one can continue to give you check up to the moment he doesn't find a square in which is attacking both of your pieces, right? So that's the interesting part, we could say. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this game from the book Mikhail Tal, the street fighting years. Obviously it wasn't really street fighting in the streets, but there are a lot of exciting games, and most of all the point of the book is to show you guys the evolution of Tal from the 1950s to the moment he won the World Championship in the 1960s. So in just 10 years he became a world champion, and that's the interesting thing. Thank you very much for watching.